Hello and welcome to the Startup Show, brought to you by Inc. Authority. I'm your host, Trevor Rowley. Hey, we've talked about a lot of things on the various episodes of this program. We've talked about business plans before, we've talked about business credit before. Today we want to talk about how the combination of business credit and business plans can make a business even more bankable to get the funds they need to grow the business. And to teach us about that a little bit, we've got a very special guest today. We want to welcome to the program James Crothers. Now, James, you're the guy who takes care of the fulfillment of the business plans for all of the business plans that are written at Inc. Authority. And you're a veteran of the business formation space of many, many years. You've worked with entrepreneurs all over the country to help them not only launch, but grow and scale their business. We're happy to have you here on the program. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So tell me first a little bit, maybe for those that missed the episode that we did about business plans, what's the purpose and the basics surrounding the need to have a business plan, particularly for a startup business owner?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of different directions we could go, but if we went with an overall layout, when you're starting a new business, especially if it's a business you've not been familiar with in the past, you probably have a lot of questions about how to set it up, what it's going to be like dealing with competition. Are there things that you need to know about your industry to further increase your success? So we've always recommended going into a new business, even if you have experience, because a lot of times there might be an owner who's been in the industry a long time, but now decided to kind of go off on their own. They realize there's a little different hat they're going to have to wear to do that. So the main reason for a business plan is you just want to have a roadmap or a blueprint, something that allows you to project where you could be 3 years from now, because we refer to it as reverse engineering. But our goal every time we put a plan together is to start at the very end. What does that owner want? For 5 years from now, what's their income level? What type of business are they thinking about? And the plan allows you to build it backwards so that you can get all to the correct milestones. If there are big obstacles in the way, you have advisors that can sit down and we can work through those with the client to make sure that it's streamlined and it's a workable plan.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this beautiful business plan is created for this customer, and there's a lot of uses for it. Can you tell us what some of those uses are?
Absolutely. The number one is funding. Right, a lot of people that are getting are trying to, how do I fund my business? We know that there's two different types of funding when you're starting a company, right? There's what we call owner contribution, and then you get into the third party or outsourced funding that kind of meets together. And how do you do that? Are you bringing somebody in as a partner? Are you looking to do it as a loan? And these are really critical questions on the financial side, because if you haven't thought through that, you might end up overpaying for the money or finding that you're not able to meet the obligations that you've set because you didn't think through far enough ahead, or maybe you assumed something that you really didn't plan out. So I'd say financial stability is probably the number one reason. If you are looking to build a team, especially say if it's a contracting team or you're trying to bring other affiliates into your business because that's part of your model, having a plan allows two things to happen. One, allows you to have clarity on what your plan and goal is, and to be able to express that to a third party. What we run into a lot, especially with startups, is they know what they want to do, but when we ask them to kind of articulate that, they start to kind of fall all over themselves. They don't know. And so now imagine, I go, well, are you going to go to the bank with that? Or are you going to go to a partner with that? So first and foremost, the business plan is always for the owner, and it's for the owner to know more about their business so that when they go have those conversations, they're not going to get stuck. So clients always tell us that they learn more from about their business from our plans, because our advisors take the time to educate them and really help them understand, hey, this is what you're getting into, and it's different than being, the person in the business versus the operator of the business.
And I'm always super impressed with these business plans that you and your team produce, because some people think of a business plan and they might think of, I don't know, a sheet of paper or maybe 2 or 3 or 4, but the breadth and the depth and the detail that you go into about industry and about market size and about financials, where they are at the present, projections, and so on and so forth, all the detail that you go into, it can be pretty intense. Yeah. We're talking about 30, 40, 50 pages, depending upon the industry, of detail about this business. It really makes the business owner think.
It does. And even going further, usually when we're working with someone that maybe has a mind for business and they're giving us, what we actually tend to find is we'll end up getting packaged with free 300 to 500 documents in it. So the flip side is the plan that we create, we have done literally thousands of these. So I always tell the clients, when you see a certain paragraph or heading, it's there for a reason. It's there because thousands have tested it before you. Where a lot of business owners, when they try to do it themselves, they put a lot of fluff in these plans, and they don't realize, we always tell them conceptually, if I have a business plan and I take it, say to you, we have 5 minutes to capture that person's attention to keep them involved. So the design of our plan is specifically created to immediately drive interest, and the rest of the plan we talk about, that 30 to 40 page plan, are references. So if somebody goes in there, they can see within the first 5 pages everything about your business. But if they have a question about, how did you come up with this number, or why this market, or why launch this way, or this marketing, they can quickly then know through the way we structure it directly to that section. So we make sure that these plans are readable. And I think that, we tighten it down. We try not to go over 50 pages. We find that those that have those 200 or 300 business plans, they end up in a drawer because no one ever has the time to read them.
Yeah.
So it's important that when someone's really working on the concept, it's great to put stuff together, but what they want to do is have a professional there to strip away what doesn't need to be there. Right? Our job is to take all that information, make it readable, make it accessible, and that's why our clients have so much success, is because we can really streamline what they're trying to accomplish.
Right. So at the end of the day, a lot of the business plans are there just to help the business owner himself stay on track, follow a roadmap, help him learn more about the business of his own business, but also to help that business become bankable in the event that they're looking for outside funding to help grow their business. Now, you contrast that a little bit with a business credit building program.
Yeah.
And we certainly would recommend that new businesses establish business credit in the name of the business, because they want to follow the same pattern they did in setting up the corporation or the LLC of separating their personal assets and liabilities from their business assets and liabilities. And credit is certainly one of the tracks that they need to follow. But business credit's different from funding.
Yes.
When you establish business credit, you're getting lines of credit and trade lines, et cetera. So it's a piece of the puzzle, getting these credit lines, getting these trade lines. The business plan is a piece of the puzzle, helping you get yourself bankable for potential funding. And what I'd really like to do is talk about how we take that to the next level, where these two things come together, right?
Sure.
Business credit and business plans, to really make remarkable changes and make things possible, dreams come true for business owners. So tell me a little bit about how business credit and business plans come together and what that does for a business owner.
Absolutely. So the first way to think about it is there's 3 steps to funding a business, right? One is the plan. So this is for you as the owner, again, talking about owner's knowledge, is what do I need? So let me start with the very first, I think it's the second or third page of the document, is what we call owner contribution. So if you're going to go to a third party and try to obtain any kind of funding, whether it's bank or private lending, they always ask one question, what skin do you have in the game? What we find is a lot of startup businesses don't have a lot of money to put into their business, right? So they're kind of working with either a minimal budget, or they're trying to find outside people just to handle the owner contribution, which is where a lot of companies run into problems. So what the business plan teaches the owner is it tells the owner, this is what we need in the way of credit lines versus money. So a lot of people don't realize that if you're starting a business, a small part of it actually requires cash. Most of what you're doing in any business is done through leases, vendor credit lines, things that can be obtained very, very easily if you maximize the use of your LLC. So it's always an education when a new startup comes in. They don't even know, in most cases, that they can utilize their LLC for that. They go, well, I'm brand new, I don't have all that. When we explained to them, we could build credit on a brand new LLC, sometimes even better than an existing LLC, because we don't have a lot of baggage that we have to explain. It's brand new going in. So the first stage is understanding it, which is, what do I actually need for my capital contribution to the business, and what do I need to actually outsource for? And so they'll find that usually they're thinking a bigger portion, thinking maybe 80% of it's going to have to come out from here, when they realize through the business credit development, because leases and vendors are so easy to get these days. I mean, we work with thousands of different opportunities, that they say, well, I can get the majority of this here through my business under much more likable conditions. I'm not going to pay over high interest on it. I've got some flexibility on how I use it, versus kind of being strangled into maybe to a type of loan. And so what we find is that those who actually utilize the plan and credit together can minimize third-party funding to a point where it's easier to get. They have more to show that party to say, look, this is the total in the company, but this is all I need from you. Versus those that don't go through this process, they're going for the big amount. And a lot of those third-party lenders are like, well, I'm going to give it to you. You haven't put anything in your business. They have nothing to show them that builds that credibility.
Right.
So if you have a great business plan, but you skip building in that business credit to where you've got leverage, you're going to find yourself in the same spot, because that plan's still going to tell you, for example, you need $350,000. But if you haven't put in that kind of middle step where you can probably get a portion of that taken care of, you're still relying on that third party. So you have to look at business development in 3 stages. Know your plan, know your numbers, know exactly how much cash you need. work with the credit division to build up all the resources that are not cash based, and then you'll find that it's so minimal. That's what takes a lot of stress off our clients, is at the end of the day, what they're taking third party is really something that doesn't have the biggest impact on the business, because most of it was taken care of internally.
So really, really well said and important. Let's consider, a startup business owner, for example, to try and apply what you've just taught us. We see a lot of different types of business owners here at Inc. Authority. We see bakers, and we see lawn service companies, and computer repairmen, and truckers, and real estate investors. Let's take a real estate investor, for example. Sure. They start up a new LLC. They're going to invest in real estate. So they take this step, right, of having a business plan drawn up for them, and it's a real eye-opening experience, right?
Yeah.
Because they're seeing, what is it going to take for me to achieve my goal? I have this projection 5 years out. What are the steps I have to take to get there? What kind of capital am I going to have to deploy to be able to get there? They look at the cash that they have on hand themselves. They're like, how am I going to close the gap, right?
Yeah.
And how am I going to make sure that I have other people's money that I can leverage to get there? So they start working business credit with it. Kind of take me through that. Like, what would a real estate investor, for example, expect? How would they use credit? Can you give me a for instance?
Absolutely.
Together with a business plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So going to the business plan first, using real estate investing as the primary business, there's a few factors that happen even before we get to the money side. One is that we have the ability. So say that we have someone who tells us that they want to make $200,000 a year as a real estate investor. If you actually look at a plan that we do for real estate, we actually break down what markets they're in, the number of properties they're going to have to do, the breakdown of how the cost structure of that's going to happen. So for example, if we look at, say, somebody who's doing rehabbing. So rehabbing, you have the same structures in any business. You have what's going to be out of your pocket, right, which we refer to as gap funding. So gap funding would be the down payment, contractors, materials, marketing, maintenance. These are typically costs that a third party is not going to pay for. What's easy to get in real estate is someone to come in and buy the property. Where a lot of investors struggle is they go, okay, well, I got someone who's going to spend, $200,000 to pick up the property, but they don't want to give me the $80,000 I need to do everything else. So when we structure real estate, and we do a lot, it's probably one of our biggest industries, we start by making sure that they understand their plan, how much gap funding they're going to need. Then they work with our credit team. They can acquire a lot of vendor relationships. 90% of real estate investors need more vendor relationships than anything else, right? Someone to come in and paint the house, to do the flooring, things that are really, really easy to get within a business credit environment, so that all they have to worry about on the purchase side is the money to go out and get the property. Another thing that I would point out too is there's a lot of companies now who are trying to capitalize on making people do 100% type loan transactions, but they're still only doing 75% to the property, and then they're doing 100% of the rehab. But in that, it's not an advantage to the investor, because they're paying more interest and they have less leverage. So any investor, we'd always recommend, make sure you control the gap funding in your business, and that way you are paying really, really low cost on money that's buying the property. Because if I'm going to if I'm an investor and I'm willing to buy a rehab or a property, my risk is really, really low. Where I would make money is by having to cover all the additional costs. So I can say, well, now that I'm doing that, I'm not going to charge you 6%. Now you're going to pay me 15%. And that just happens. That we always say for investors, that's poor planning. Because any investor going in says, look, I'm not going to put myself in that position. Business credit can be built. Doesn't matter what your past credit history is. All of that, we can build it internally. And even if it takes a little time, when it's done, that's something you're going to have for the rest of your life. And you're going to be able to really minimize risk, minimize interest. But you will not put those two pieces together unless that plan is solid. And it makes sense, because obviously as you're getting the numbers and getting it, you need that plan to produce the results that you've anticipated, right?
Yeah.
So it's all kind of ultimately connects. But the gap funding is very, very simple to get. We do it for thousands of real estate investors, because the other alternative is more expensive and more risky to them and their ability to grow the business.
Yeah. People would spend thousands of dollars to get the information you've just shared with us. That was pretty incredible. What would you say to a value conscious person? Somebody is starting their new business. Maybe they don't have a lot of their own funds to get started, and now they're faced with these decisions. Like, they want to grow their business. Should they take advantage of a business plan? Should they take advantage of a program to build business credit? Is there value in doing them both together? What would you say to a new business owner based on your experience? You've run and operated and continue to operate your own businesses. You've been a real estate investor. What is the value of bringing these things together? What does it help that business owner do? How does it help them accelerate the process?
So, and everybody's going to have to take, kind of an internal check on what they're looking to do. So there's two types of business owners, right? There's business owners that will go out there and they're going to kind of take the do-it-yourself route, thinking there's no other option for them. And those are the ones that obviously will struggle the most. They're going to have the least amount of resources. And what we find really buries them is the fact that they're not wearing one hat. They're the marketing. And they might know I'm the worst marketer on the planet, but I've hired myself to be my marketing director, right? I'm the sales director. I'm all these different people. And I think people that just have had a little bit of years in their life know you can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we always recommend, and it's a tough decision, is that, say for example, I have a client who's got, $4,000 set aside to run their business. They've got two options. They can say, well, I'm going to wear these multiple hats. I'm going to take this money and I'm going to hope for the best. Or they realize, hey, I want to be in this business for the next 20, 30 years. I want to quit my job. I want to put my kids through college. Like, I have a plan. And they realize that if I take this, $4,000 and I invest it into tools, support, coaching, I'm going to be able to double that by getting credit into my business, by getting the knowledge, by avoiding mistakes. Because I always tell them, if you took that $4,000 as an example and you put it in your business and it fails, who's going to save you? Nobody, right? You sunk. However, if you've taken that and invested things like planning and credit and mentorship to grow that business, and you make a mistake, business credit's forgivable, right? You can go get more, because the way business credit works, the more you spend, the more you get. It's a very, very different concept than personal credit, where once you get into the high utilization, no one wants to touch you until you get back down to that 35% number. So you have to ask yourself, is it possible I'm going to make a mistake starting this business? And if you're brand new, the answer is probably yes. But it doesn't have to be one that's detrimental to the success of the business, right? Because if you turn around and said, yeah, I put this money out, but my business credit, I can go in there, I can recover, I can get other tools and resources, and I'm just not going to make that mistake again. They're still in business. And guess what? It didn't affect their personal credit. It didn't put them out of commission. And they might find in the future that because they kept themselves out of the loop, maybe they can get more money in their business or grow faster, because now they can co-sign safely where everything is not impacting them negatively like it would if they were just doing everything on their own. So I would just encourage anyone starting a business to take a self-check and go, what do I really want? Yeah. And if I put 4,000 out and I lose it, can I just throw my hands in the air and say, it didn't work? Or is this one where you have to succeed? Yeah. There's not that option available.
It's so important, right? I mean, a business owner has to take a hard look at himself and determine, what's my own risk tolerance? Yeah. How fast do I want this business to grow? Am I comfortable, kind of slowly plodding along? There's nothing wrong with that if that's right. The pattern and that's what you want to do. Or do you want to try and accelerate this? Do you really want to put the pedal to the metal and see what you can do as fast as you can? Yeah. Because it takes very, very different approaches, right?
Yeah. And there's only two types of business owners. So, and we work with both that come through here. And it's okay to be price conscious, right? If you're starting a business, you say, I have so much to work with. And that's why you want to really evaluate. And we work with thousands of business owners across the country. And one of the things that we do is we thoroughly evaluate their situation. We're a company that if it doesn't make sense to do it, we're not going to have you do it, right? Because we're looking for long-term success, and we're always looking at what's best for the customer, always.
So speaking of what's best for the customer, any customer experiences, success stories that you can share with us? Somebody who, maybe they jumped in with both feet and they said, I'm going to build business credit, I'm going to leverage that, I'm going to have a business plan drawn up, it's going to be my roadmap, and you've been around this for a long time. Now they've come out the other end successful. Anything you can share with us?
Absolutely. So, and I can go from multiple industries. Transportation is a big industry of ours. Yeah. We have a lot of success stories. We have people coming in. I had a client that went out, didn't have good credit, was in the middle of a divorce, couldn't get through, ended up coming to us, working with us, and we were able to show kind of how to build things like leases on trucks and show them different paths, because they really wanted out. They're driving every day, but they're just not making the money. They're working for somebody else on their schedule. So we see a lot of that in transportation, because some of the things that is a real strain on somebody in transportation is one of the easiest things for us to kind of fix or mend for them. But I would say if we're going through real estate, it's probably the most, right? Those who have gone through the process, we have a really high success rate with real estate investors, because our plan is so specifically designed for that industry. It's not like if you go to a regular business plan company, if they haven't experienced the thousands of real estate mistakes you can make and all the processes that all of our clients have gone through that we kind of learn from. That's one thing that I always tell our clients, is that if we have an investor who goes out there and makes a mistake, or they share that with their advisor. They'll say, hey, this didn't work, or this worked really well. And it's one of the reasons why our plan is now only 40 or 50 pages, because people tell us what works and what doesn't. So that's where the success is. It's in the mentoring and having people that have gone through this before you, so that you're not going out there. But yeah, probably the most success is people coming in, never having any background in real estate, and just holding their hand. And within 6 months to a year, they're full time, they're out of their job, they're just living a different life. Even in markets, as we know, the markets have gone crazy, and our clients are still succeeding because they built the plan with looking at what potential milestones could happen. Could the market drop? Could it go higher? If it does that, how does the business adjust in those environments? It's one of the things that's in our plan that I think we probably get the most compliments on now, because even in my state and here in Nevada, the market has gone up so much, and yet people that have worked with us are still successful because it didn't throw them off as it did a lot of investors. Because I'd probably say 95% of investors do absolutely zero planning. You even talk about a business plan and they run the other way. But those who've gone through that, they were inspecting it and they're saying, we knew this could potentially be a problem, and we talked through what those solutions were. So maybe it's how they bought the property. As an example, one of our clients, they ended up buying the property when it was, a little bit high. They thought they were going to get rid of it. They couldn't, but it was built in with an exit strategy of being a short-term rental, and they're actually making 3 times almost what they made on that one flip. They're making that every single year as a short-term rental, and that was their exit strategy. They would have never done that if they wouldn't have taken the time to say, well, what happens if that happens?
Yeah.
Most investors just go, I'm in trouble, or they get stuck, or they lose property, they ruin their credit, and it just doesn't have to be that way.
And that business plan helps them think about these things, these eventualities and the choices and the options, and helps them down that path to success.
Yeah, because we ask the questions.
Yeah.
What happens at this? What are you going to do? And you know what the answer is? I have no idea. And we always say, we do. Like, we have to have an exit strategy. What about doing this in the market? The market looks good for that. And so just having that intelligent conversation goes a long way, because all of a sudden, once somebody understands conceptually why it makes sense to invest in their business, in business development versus the business itself, is they say, man, if I didn't have the support around me, I'd be making crazy decisions, because it would be just me deciding what my life is going to be. And 90% of them have never gone through it. And now they're making the biggest decisions of their life.
Well, this has been incredible. I've learned so much today. Appreciate you coming and sharing all of this about the importance of business plans, the importance of business credit, how they work together to accelerate the growth of a business. Appreciate you having you here on the show today. And we want to thank all of you for joining us today or on this episode of the Startup Show. As always, brought to you by Inc. Authority. Take a moment, if you would, be so kind, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future content. And while you're there, go ahead and hit the like button. Show us how much you appreciate the content. We're going to continue to bring it to you. Until we see you next time, here's wishing you much success. This is Trevor Rowley, your host, saying goodbye.